The moment I stepped off the plane in Melbourne, there was a shift. The air was clean and I noticed it. A profound pride in calling myself an Australian. Not nationalist, not political, something quieter than that. Water streams in the main cities, shamelessly black, littered, polluted, smelling of a sewage, and that is being polite about it. 470,000 cases annually, and that is with significant underreporting. Over 90% of women in India reported experiencing harassment, including temple lines, including hospital queues. The two places a human being goes when they are most vulnerable, not safe there either. 470,000 crimes against women in every 1 year in the same country. What Indians are praying for from the gods and goddesses of heaven is given to Western civilization as a default state of being. Without prayers, without temples, without gods, the country that built Kamakhya, Khajuraho, Konark, worshipped as divine, polluted beyond recognition. The goddess in the temple, pure. The women standing in the temple queues are harassed. Something broke that connection. That is what these videos are here to name, and where possible, begun to repair. I just came back from India, and I need to tell you something before I tell you anything else. The moment I stepped off the plane in Melbourne, there was a shift. Not a dramatic, a quiet shift. The air was clean and I noticed it. I actually noticed clean air because for weeks I had been breathing something else. The road from airport into the city was quiet. No horns, no chaos. Roundabouts with actual flowers in them. Street that smelled of nothing or something pleasant. And I sat in the car. I felt something I was not expecting. A profound pride in calling myself an Australian. Not nationalist, not political, something quieter than that. A gratitude for the baseline. For a society that decided certain things are non-negotiable. They will be simply provided. But the images from India were not fading. They were sitting right here behind my eyes. And they kept asking a question I have never heard asked publicly ever before. Why is what Indians are praying for in their temples given to Western societies as a default state of being without any prayer at all? That question is what this video is. And before we go anywhere else in this series, this needed to be said. Let me tell you what the Western baseline actually looks like. Not as an advertisement, as an honest observation from someone who has lived in both worlds. You wake up in the morning, you walk in the kitchen, you turn on the tap, clean, drinkable water comes out. You do not have to think about this. You have never had to think about this. It has always been there, without effort, without prayers, without bribing anyone. You walk outside and the air is clean, not a hazard, not something your lungs have to negotiate with every breath. Just air, clean, breathable, taken completely for granted. The street you walk on has no garbage piled at intervals, has roundabouts with flowers in them, public spaces that are maintained because a society decided they matter. You need a document from the government, you go online and you go to an office. You wait your turn, the process works, nobody asks you for anything extra, no handshake with money in it, No cousin of cousin who needs to be called first. Your children go to school and the school bags they carry is a reasonable weight for a child to carry, not the weight of the entire syllabus stacked on a 7-year-old's spine. Because the system figured out what actually matters to learn. They go to school to understand education, not to perform the appearance of it. When the police arrive, you feel safer, not because you paid someone, because that is their function and it is largely working. There is no VIP culture where your dignity at a hospital counter depends on whether you are known or not. And women here have more freedom of movement, more right to simply exist in public without calculating the risk of every journey. This is not utopia. This is the baseline, the minimum dignified condition of a functioning human society. And the extraordinary thing about it is that it is invisible to the people living inside it, because it has always been there, like clean air, like clean water from the tap. I am not saying the West has no problems. It has significant problems, and we will address those. I'm saying the baseline is real, and the baseline changes everything. Because when I compare that baseline to what I witnessed in India, the gap is not just uncomfortable, it is a spiritual paradox that cannot be ignored. Now let me tell you what I witnessed in India. India, which currently holds a declared ambition of becoming the world's next superpower. I'm not speaking about India's history. India's history is extraordinary. I'm speaking about the modern ground reality. What you actually encounter when you are standing in it. Water streams in the main cities, shamelessly black, littered, polluted, smelling of a sewage, and that is being polite about it. Mountains being eroded, not by natural weathering, by construction, by extraction, by a development model that does not stop to ask what it cost the land to build this vast. Farmland over-concreted, the soil that fed generations sealed permanently in the name of progress. Air that is not air in the conventional sense at all. Something your lungs learn to carry as the daily cost of being in the city. And through all of this, a political atmosphere that resembles a religion more than a democracy, where questioning the leadership is treated as a form of betrayal, where belief is encouraged before inquiry. The system that are supposed to protect people, police, courts, bureaucracy, riddled with corruption, at exactly the level where protection is most needed. And underneath all of it, the woman, the rivers, and the land. All three, which India believes to understand as divine, as direct manifestation of the goddess. All three depleted, eroded, and violated, with zero to very little repair. What is happening in modern India is not a poverty problem. It is a consumption problem, an exponential amount of consumption of the feminine in every form, at an extreme level of imbalance. And the most devastating part is that the country doing this is the same country that built the most sophisticated understanding of feminine energy ever encoded in human history. Let me give you the numbers, because this is not abstract. This is documented, measurable, and real. In 2023, the total number of crimes against women in India was a whopping 470,000 cases. annually. And that is with significant underreporting, because public touching and teasing almost never gets reported due to social stigma, family pressure, or fear of retaliation. Rapes. After underreporting, 32,000 cases per year. Researchers consider the actual number significantly higher than what is generally filed. Groping and physical harassment, 80,000 reported cases. The unreported fraction is considered to dwarf that number entirely. And then the number that stopped me completely. Over 90% of women in India reported experiencing harassment in public spaces, not just on buses, not just in markets, including temple lines, including hospital queues. The two places a human being goes when they are seeking the divine, when they are most vulnerable, when they have come because they need help. Not safe there either. And the life expectancy, just over 70 years in India compared to 83 years in Western countries. A 13-year gap, not genetics, infrastructure. What happens to the body when it spends a lifetime breathing polluted air, drinking compromised water, navigating a healthcare system that is not reliably on their side? 13 years given or taken by the society you happen to be born into. And now the question that has been sitting on my chest ever since I have come back to Melbourne, the one I have genuinely never heard asked publicly, at least not in this way. India has more temples per square meter than almost anywhere on earth. India's relationship with the divine is baked into the physical architecture of the country, into the stones of the street, into the rhythm of the morning. Every day before dawn, in their hundreds of thousands, men and women queue at these temples. They have walked there in the dark, some have walked for hours, some have fasted for days. And in their millions, they attend pilgrimages collectively, hundreds of thousands together, towards something sacred, asking something from the god and goddesses that they cannot find in the streets. And I want to ask, what are they asking for? Safety on the way to work? Clean water for their children? Or a school that actually teaches something? A hospital that treats them with dignity? A street where their daughter can walk at any hour without calculating the risk? A system that works for them without demanding anything under the table? What Indians are praying for from the gods and goddesses of heaven is given to Western civilization as a default state of being, without prayers, without temples, without gods, without any efforts whatsoever. In Australia, you do not pray for clean water. You turn on the tap. You do not pray for a safe street. You walk on it. You do not pray for a hospital that sees you as a human being. You go to one, and that is largely what you receive. You do not pray for your children to receive a real education. You enroll them, and the system mostly delivers. No offerings required, no pilgrimages, no divine intervention. Just a society that decided these things matter and built the system to provide them without a single temple. This is the question that has never been publicly addressed in this way. The country that gave the world Kundalini energy, the divine feminine rising the masculine pillar to enlightenment, the country that built Kamakhya, Khajuraho, Konark, Virupaksha, the Modhera Sun Temple, celebration of the goddess in her full cosmic power. Why is that country's woman afraid to be outside her residence after dark? The Kama Sutra came from India. The concept of Adi Shakti came from India. The understanding that the masculine and feminine are not opposite but a union, the union through which existence itself, if possible, came from India. Kundalini, the divine feminine rising to meet the masculine pillar, where their union is the enlightenment, this wisdom came from India. And yet, 470,000 crimes against women in every 1 year in the same country. Something went profoundly wrong, and it was not poverty. Poverty does not explain worshipping the goddess in stone and hunting her in the streets. It is consumption problem, an imbalance so deep and so long running that it has been normalized, accepted as the nature of things. And the most dangerous form of any injustice is the one that has been normalized for so long that nobody thinks to question it anymore. But this is not only India's problem. The feminine is being consumed everywhere, in different ways, with different jurisdictions, but everywhere. That is where this series goes next. The Ganges, in Indian words, Gangaji. In Indian spirituality, Ganga is a goddess. She is considered spiritually pure. Millions pray to her daily to wash away their sins, to cleanse them, to bless them. And physically, she is one of the most polluted rivers on earth, worshipped as divine, polluted beyond recognition. This is the image that stays with me because it is not just about a river. It is about a pattern, the pattern of worshipping the feminine in the abstract while consuming her in reality. The goddess in the temple, pure. The river that carries her name, toxic. The women standing in the temple queues are harassed. Same pattern, different scale. A country that cannot protect its river, its land, its women, cannot claim to understand the divine feminine. No matter how many temples it builds, no matter how many pilgrimages it attends, the goddess is not in the stone. She is in the living, breathing, freely moving manifestation of feminine energy in the world. When that is depleted, the worship is hollow. There is one more layer to this, one more irony that needs to be named. The loudest voices declaring India's greatness, the most fervent nationalism, often comes from Indians who have left, who lives in Australia, in the UK, in Canada. And there is a profound paradox in that. India's brightest minds, its doctors, its engineers, its most ambitious and capable people migrate to places like Melbourne, not because they do not love India, but because they want the baseline. The clean air, functioning hospital, the school where their children's bag does not overweigh the weight of the child, the street their daughter can walk safely on. They want what Westerners receive by default, and they are voting with their lives to get it. I am one of them. I know what it means to have the baseline. I know what it cost to build a life without it. So this is not me looking down from a distance. This is me looking at what I have witnessed with the eyes of someone who has lived in both worlds and refusing to be silent about the gap. I came back to Melbourne with a specific clarity, the kind that comes from standing in one world and then stepping back into another. I'm proud to call this land home, not because it is perfect, but because what it got right. The baseline is the difference between a life that has ground to grow from and a life spent fighting for the basic right to exist with dignity. But the clarity came with a weight. Because the world is not just Melbourne, and the feminine in every form she takes is not yet safe anywhere, not entirely, not fully. She is worshipped in India and hunted there. She is legally free in the West and quietly consumed there too. And this series is about naming that precisely, honestly, and completely. The gods are not withholding from India. The goddesses are not absent. What was encoded in those ancient temples, in Kamakhya, in Khajuraho, in Konark, was never meant to stay in stone. It was a living technology, a way to understand the feminine as the source of all creation, and the masculine as the ground that protects her, not the hand that consumes her. Something broke that connection. That is what these videos are here to name, and where possible, begin to repair. Share this video with someone who has never stopped to ask why a country with this much ancient wisdom about the divine feminine is producing these numbers. Because the question has to be asked, and it has to be asked by someone who loves both worlds enough to be honest about both. This is not an advice. This is the code. See you at sunrise.